Welcome to Breaking the Standard. We are closing the communication and knowledge gap for small businesses in GovCon. I'm Aubrey Gainford, and today we have very special guest with us, Mark Amtower. Mark, welcome.
Aubrey, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm so excited to have you. If you could just please introduce yourself for our listeners, that would be great.
Oh, okay. The standard intro. I started my company in 1985 because nobody looked to be treating marketing to the government as a separate discipline. So I thought that would be a cool little niche to play in, and I've been there ever since. So I advise small, medium, and large, mostly smalls these days. I don't do overall marketing to the government. I focus on helping companies build subject matter expert platforms, leveraging LinkedIn and content. And again, I've been on Federal News Radio for 17 years. I've been writing for WashTech for 15 years. I've written for a number of other outlets in the market, including Bloomberg and GovCon Wire, and on and on. And I write to get feedback. And same thing with my books. I have 9 of them out now. 4 of them deal directly with GovCon. 5 don't. But I thrive on feedback because I'm never sure if what I'm saying is in the right direction, if it resonates, if I'm saying it the right way. And mercifully, most of the feedback I get is positive, and some of it pushes me beyond. So it makes me think more. And
Hmm.
that's the kind that I like best. So
Well,
my job is to annoy people.
um, if you don't know Mark and you're not following Mark already, I'm going to link his profile in the show notes, but he's a wealth of knowledge. I have been following him for some time, so to have him on the show is a full circle moment for me. And today we're going to talk about building your presence on LinkedIn. And as Mark mentioned, that's one of his specialties. And I think this is going to be a very crucial conversation for small businesses that really want to connect and network and just take it to the next level, because LinkedIn, if I'm wrong, I could be wrong, but LinkedIn is the platform for that, isn't it?
You are definitely not wrong. I do a census of feds on LinkedIn every year. And as of February of this year, there's 2.72 million feds on LinkedIn. That number is growing. And I track the number of feds on LinkedIn by identifying company pages for all kinds of departments, agencies, operating divisions, even down to the office level. So I have a client, a small business in Colorado that works in AI and simulation. And this guy wants to join one of my groups on LinkedIn the other day, and I always review profiles. And his job 3 jobs ago had to do with the Air Force Simulation Center down in Florida, and I had never heard of that. And I looked it up, and lo and behold, there was a company page for it with 18 employees. So I've identified 18
Hmm.
more people for my next census.
Hmm. So, and I'm taking this from a 101 perspective, because I like to assume that people listening to this are in any part of the spectrum in terms of where they are with GovCon and building their business. So, why would it be important to know that information? So you pull that information and break it down by agency and sub agencies within that agency. Why does that information matter, and what can small businesses do with that?
Well, for small businesses to grow, too many of them, leverage NAICS codes in an untenable way. If you have 15 NAICS codes and you're a 5-person company, I don't think the contracting officer is going to believe you. The program manager is not going to believe you. So when I'm advising, where do you make the most money? What is your area of expertise? Let's build out that area of expertise. Then we'll flesh it out on LinkedIn so you have some presence. Then we'll find the people it would be most germane to share your information with. So, like my client in Colorado, they won't mind. It's a company called Optech Systems,
Mm-hmm.
and they've been involved in AI and simulation for several years. So AI has been used in our market for a while. It just hasn't been that visible. Um, but when I saw this Air Force unit, even though it only has 18 people, that's a growing area. You know, the whole simulation thing, they have a huge event down in Florida around that every year. So for a small, you need to identify your core skills,
Hmm.
enunciate them clearly, document them clearly. If you have CPARs, make sure those are out there too. And then you start identifying the niches in government. You're not going to sell to, quote, the government because it's too damn big.
Right.
And, you know, niche it down. You know, if you have a client. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they own a niche inside health IT, and they want to branch out to others. And my first question is, you know, how big are you in health IT, and how much bigger could you be? You're already known here, so let's expand this front before you even think about going out to a broader community, because once you do that, you become more of a generalist and the competition becomes extremely intense.
Mm. Yeah,
Smalls have to differentiate.
that's a good point because a lot of times, smalls are used as subs because they can offer a specialty that the largest can't. So you want to make sure that you stand out. And that's such a good point to bring up, that you don't want to take on too much too quickly and then become generalized, because then you kind of just get lost in the market with everybody else. Like, what makes you stand out?
Exactly. And you know, the primes are often going to be tasked with helping the government fill that small business set aside.
Hmm.
And if you aren't clearly enunciating to the prime community as well as to the government community what you bring to the table, the likelihood of getting those sub spots is radically reduced as well. And
Hmm.
if you're known by both sides, you've seen this, you've probably done this.
Hmm.
You can tell a prime, this is a small that we really want on this contract.
Mm. I've never done that, but I do know that, the conversations are a little bit more open before the solicitation officially goes
Right.
out. But
Yes.
I know that there are a lot of larges out there that we work with that are very good. They have a small business shop and they have people in mind, or they're constantly shopping around and networking for, companies that can fill depending on what the RFP says. But so I guess my question for you is, so they decide what they want to do. They specialize, they've got their niche figured out. They're not focusing on NAICS codes. Then how do they expand their presence on LinkedIn? Like, what are some of the things, that they need to keep in mind? Because I feel like until you're a business owner and you start to take on employees and have to worry about all of these things, you don't think about all of the other factors that could, expand your business, have you get more connections, what really matters. So what would be the next thing after they've identified what they're going to specialize in and what makes them stand apart?
Okay, well, clearly enunciating that on your profile, your individual profile. If you have subject matter experts, make sure their profiles are, you know, relevant to the audience you want to serve. The same with
Mm-hmm.
your company profile. Then you start documenting the area of expertise with content, either content that you generate, and you're going to have to generate some, and it doesn't matter what form it is because people digest content in multiple ways, you know, the written word, the printed word, the audible
Mm-hmm.
word, the videos, you name it. You know, people are all over it, so it doesn't matter what kind of format you're using. What matters is that you generate content that is germane to your audience and that demonstrates your knowledge of the subject that you're purporting to be an expert in. So you need that on your profile to attract people, because if your profile is not somewhat active, there's no reason for people to visit. Okay. And you're
Mm-hmm.
not going to attract more. And
Mm-hmm.
then you have, you know, I go over this with last night, um, client, the Optech. Okay, they posted some stuff. There was only one comment on it, but there was like 20 likes. So I said, let's jump on a Zoom. Show me those likes. How many of these people do you know? How many are first degrees? How many are second? Have you looked at the second degrees of the people who like this? And are they germane to what you do? Should they be part of your network? I mean,
Hmm.
it's time consuming, but for small businesses, you don't need thousands of connections. You need tens or maybe 100 or a couple hundred of the right connections.
Mm,
So, but you
hmm.
have to work to find those. And what I love about LinkedIn is that everybody, literally everybody is here. I told you before we started the show, I do a census of feds on LinkedIn every year. I've been doing it for 12 years. This past year, I identified 2.72 million feds on LinkedIn, everybody, DOD, Uniformed Services, Civilian, and the IC. 556 so far company pages for agencies, department operating divisions, even down to the office level. So they're here, they're findable. And if you approach them properly, and this is the trick, if you approach them properly, they will connect. But
Hmm.
if you send out that nebulous I want you in my network invitation, they aren't even going to pay attention. They want to know why, because they're getting requests to connect all the time from every vendor out there and probably vendors not in the government market.
Hmm.
So if you don't put it in context, if you don't give them a legitimate reason, you know, you might as well not even be on LinkedIn. Shoot yourself.
That's I mean, I'm thinking about this not only from a business perspective, but also from like my business's perspective, because it's interesting to think about, where is your content landing and who are you reaching
Mm-hmm.
within the network that you're creating. And you said something before we started recording that it's the presence, like the presence that you're creating, being intentional around the connections and the network that you're creating versus just having, tens of thousands of people that you're connected to, because that truly will make the difference.
Yeah, I mean, when LinkedIn started, there was something called LinkedIn Open Networkers, Lions, and I never understood why somebody would want that. Well, you never know when somebody can help you. Well,
Hmm.
I don't need 30,000 people helping me who aren't in the government market. I want people who are in the government market, preferably marketing, sales, BD, or growth officers in my network. I want govies in my network. And I'm just a marketing guy. I do have some visibility in the market, but I have probably 5 to 8% of my connections are senior feds who have reached out to connect to me.
Hmm. Hmm.
So if you're visible enough, if you add enough value, and that's the key, adding value.
Hmm.
No cat videos, no kumbayas. Um, you know, go to Facebook if you want to do that, or one of
Hmm.
the other platforms. They don't belong here.
So quality over quantity.
Mhm.
And then I guess from some of the clients that you've had that have taken on LinkedIn and, done put in the time, like you were saying, you had the call last night and looked at, who interacted with it and where their connections fell. What have you seen in some of your clients that have utilized LinkedIn to their benefit? Like I know you can generalize, but what have been some of the outcomes?
Okay, without naming the client, I have a client that focuses on a particular part of the U.S. Navy, the parts of Navy that are involved in research, development, test, and evaluation, RDT&E, which is always a significant part of the Defense Authorization Bill.
Hmm.
So they're down in Southern Maryland at Pax River, and I went in there pre-pandemic to do LinkedIn training for them, and they had focused on one area, NOCAD, and since that time, they branched out to a couple other RDT&E operating divisions within the Navy. And over the last 4 or 5 months, they've won probably 6 different contracts
Wow.
as a result of this.
Hmm.
And I got a note from the CEO the other day saying, your advice on ABM, account based marketing, really pays off.
Mm-hmm.
And, I live for those kind of comments because I know what happens, but to hear about it, and he shared the contract information with me.
Mm-hmm.
So naturally, I immediately posted it on LinkedIn
Of course. Of
without.
course.
I didn't claim any responsibility though. You see, I mean, they executed. I can show you the way, but
Mm-hmm.
it's still up to you. And I've showed a lot of companies the way, and the issue becomes, will they execute even though they know this works? And
Mm-hmm.
not everybody does. If you do, I can pretty much guarantee growth. If you don't, I can pretty much guarantee in 3 years you'll be out of business.
Mm. Well, I love the fact though that, putting in the work, it's just like anything else, we constantly say do your research. So this is just another way of you doing your research to see, are there specialized, people in that field, and how can you get connected to them, and then having a conversation, because LinkedIn's an open platform. There's nothing illegal about having open conversations in any way, shape, or form on there. And it could be potentially viewed as market research, in my opinion, because it's another way to find companies and find opportunities if you don't know where to go. Because I feel like and I'm just saying from the Fed side for a second, I really wish that we could use that in a different way, because a lot of times we look on, SAM, or, they send out an RFI, or we look and pick a couple people from GSA, but maybe this is another way to look at that. And I know from my agency, we don't do that. I've never heard of agencies doing that. And I know we're behind the times with a lot of things, but maybe that's something that is, potential for the future.
Bring me in. I spoke at the national serious biz. I spoke at the National Contract Management Association annual conference pre-COVID. My
Mm-hmm.
session was on how to use LinkedIn in the anonymous mode to vet subject matter experts and companies that are trying to get on your radar.
Mm,
So you can go into the anonymous mode, and a lot of contracting officers are there perpetually.
mm-hmm.
I like to think because I told them to. Uh, but the feds use LinkedIn to vet you. And if you claim an area of expertise over here, you've altered your statement. Your qual forms. I'm drawing a blank. Um,
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
yeah.
your
So
your capabilities or your
capability
qualifications. Yeah.
statement. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
People can alter that some, but if you alter it a fair amount and it's not substantiated on your LinkedIn profile,
Mm-hmm.
wrong answer.
Right. Right.
Um,
Right. I'm so glad that you said that. I'll have to go see if I can find it, because I love the idea of doing that. And I didn't know you could do that from the anonymous portion. So
I'll
I'll have
show
to
you
keep that
how
in mind.
after.
Yeah. I mean, I love that idea from the CO side. And then from the industry side though, it's just I can't emphasize enough that, regardless of what business size you are, this is just a tool that is available all the time for people to use to really build upon, their presence and their connections. I mean, I follow you on LinkedIn, and from something I posted a couple days ago, you responded to it and we were able to connect, and now I have you on the show. So it's making me realize that, it's being smart and being strategic about what you're putting out there and the conversations that you're having, versus constantly just putting out content that's not landing with people.
Right. Being in the right place at the right time means being active.
Mm,
You're
hmm.
you're going to be found if you're active.
Hmm.
And if you're not active, it ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and there's just, I mean, you can reach out to pretty much any job functional area you want as a small. So I don't suggest usually reaching out to contracting officers. I
Hmm.
want to talk to program managers and the people who are
Hmm.
implementing things.
Hmm.
Those are the people who are going to tell the contracting officer, hey, this is what we want. This is our preferred vendor. And that way you may get on the list.
Well, and
You,
that's smart, because they're the people that you're going to be supporting. You know,
Yep.
we're the business advisors, right? Like we're helping you to determine what's the best path forward, what vehicle to use, how to, you know, award this. But the program offices are the people that you're going to be interacting with every day anyway. So
Yep.
that's a great idea. And if you're not doing that already, you should be. And I know we're going to have another conversation in another episode about taking this to the next level and branding, you know, and looking at how to really hone in on your brand. But I want to ask you, what would be advice that you have for small businesses that want to work in GovCon or already working in GovCon?
For small businesses, again, understand what you do best. Using SAM or even one of the paid services, determine which agencies that's applicable to. Check and see if that agency has a track record of being small business friendly direct, or is it indirect, because they may leverage the integrator community to get the subs in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to know the landscape of your potential clients before you start reaching out. Then think about clearly enunciating your position. Your website and LinkedIn are the two places that you're going to be vetted by everybody.
Mm,
And if they aren't hand in glove, you know, again, shoot yourself.
right.
It doesn't make sense. So figure out what you do best, how you can deliver that. You'll need to determine which contracts are most germane for that. And it's never a single contract, it's always going to be multiple. And your access to those contracts initially is going to be indirect, not direct. So you
Mm,
won't be able to get on, ITES, whatever iteration, or Soup 6 when
mm-hmm.
it comes out. Or you may be able to if you plan far enough and ahead, but you need a track record in order to get on those. You develop your track record usually as a sub, or if you're a product company partnering with the right distributor, vendor in the market. So you have Carasoft, MX Group, DLT, or a number of smaller companies. But you want to focus on those that are going to be able to help you target that particular agency.
Mm.
That, if you don't do that kind of homework up front, you're going to be treading water for a long time, and you probably won't last.
I don't think I could have said it better myself. So, if our listeners want to get in touch with you, what would be the best way to do that?
The best way to reach me is through LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very easy to find, and to my knowledge, I'm the only Mark Amtower on LinkedIn.
I think you are, and I'm going to link Mark's profile in the show notes. But thank you so much for listening. And if you have any questions for Mark or for me, send them to breakingthestandard@gmail.com. And until next time, bye.
That was